In the Labour Party election campaign almost a year ago, Rachel Reeves made a great speech about promises to pensioners. And then, after almost 9 months of Labour Party being in power, all that remains is empty words. And even worse, she targeted the elderly. Let's look back and evaluate.
Under the Conservatives, this is the first ever Parliament where living standards will be lower at the end than they were at the beginning. And because of the 25 Tory tax rises, the average family is going to be paying £870 more in tax because of their plans and their failure. And now, on top of all of that, there's this £46 billion black hole in their own plans. This can only be funded by cuts to the basic state pension, increasing the pension age, and higher taxes for pensioners in retirement. Let me be clear. Labour have committed to the triple lock to give pensioners the certainty that they need to plan for their retirement. Labour is ready to serve, ready to lead, and ready to rebuild Britain. If you want change, you have to vote for it. And that is the choice at the ballot on Thursday.
Britain's retirees, buckle up. Rachel Reeves, the woman now holding the keys to the Treasury, appears determined to squeeze every last penny out of your pensions in a desperate attempt to fund Labour's spending ambition. If her recent moves are any indication, we're not witnessing economic strategy. We're watching a stealth tax raid of historic proportions. Labour has long had a fractious relationship with Britain's savers. Former Chancellor Gordon Brown famously launched an all-out assault on private pensions in 1997, stealth taxing dividend income and siphoning off billions from final salary schemes. That policy decimated the retirement plans of millions. And now, it seems, Rachel Reeves is preparing a sequel.
When I reached out to shake her hand, it was purple and freezing cold. Already back then, she was afraid to put the heating on, struggling to get by on the small pension that she had built up through a lifetime of work. As energy bills and inflation rise even higher, I often think of her. Conference, that is the stark reality facing people all around our country today.
Her intentions couldn't be clearer. In her first significant policy announcement, Reeves scrapped the winter fuel payment for over 10 million pensioners. While Labour defenders say the payment was removed from wealthier households, that's hardly the full picture. Among those affected are 2 million pensioners just above the poverty line, many of whom will now be forced below it. For some elderly citizens, that £300 sterling payment meant choosing between heating and eating. Reeves' cold calculation turned it into a line-item sacrifice. But the real trick is subtler and more insidious. Reeves has fully embraced fiscal drag, the Treasury's sleight of hand that freezes income tax thresholds even as inflation and pensions rise. The state pension may go up annually under the triple lock, but more and more pensioners are being dragged into the tax net. An estimated 700,000 more retirees will pay income tax next year, pushing the total number above 9 million. These aren't multimillionaires with offshore trusts. These are everyday pensioners who worked, saved, and now find themselves penalized for doing so. The message: work hard your whole life, and Labour will reward you with stealth taxes in your retirement. Worse still, Reeves has set her sights on inheritance tax reform, but not to ease the burden for grieving families. Currently, retirees can pass on unused defined contribution pensions to loved ones tax-free. Reeves is reportedly preparing to revoke that exemption, dragging bereaved families into the clutches of the taxman, just as they're dealing with loss. It's a cash grab, masked as policy. And if you think that's bad, wait until she comes for your defined benefit (DB) pension scheme. These traditional employer-backed pensions have long been the gold standard for retirement security. Many remain in surplus, around £160 sterling billion in total, and Reeves is now openly mulling ways to funnel those funds into government coffers. That surplus doesn't belong to the state, it belongs to workers. But under Reeves, even the sanctity of private, contractually agreed pensions is fair game. It doesn't stop there. Reeves has long criticized higher rate pension tax relief, branding the 40% and 45% reliefs for higher earners as too generous. The implication is clear. She wants to flatten relief to 20% or 25%, a move that would hammer middle-class professionals, especially those in their 50s and 60s trying to top up their retirement pots before it's too late. Doctors, teachers, and engineers, the very backbone of British society, would find themselves punished for prudent saving. And what of the long-term message? If pensions are no longer protected, if every fiscal hole leads to another raid on retirement savings, why should anyone save at all? Why should anyone trust the system? The Chancellor claims she's making tough choices in tough times. But make no mistake, these are political choices. Rachel Reeves isn't balancing the books, she's picking the pockets of pensioners and hoping nobody notices.
You've been on this conversation for years now. You were one of the first to say British Steel should be fully nationalised as a strategic industry. And you've also been saying, why not power it with British coal? Tell us why you think that's a good idea.
Well, it's got a good ring to it, hasn't it? British coal for British Steel, for a nation who believes in making our own things. And we know that actually those two industries were the powerhouse of wealth creation for the Industrial Revolution. But look, we've all been gaslit, we've been misinformed, and we've been lied to. And I've discovered it. And I'm calling out the Labour Party and the eco-zealots. When the pit was denied being opened last autumn by Ed Miliband, a concerted effort went around by everybody to say that the coal wasn't suitable to be used by our own blast furnace steelworks at Port Talbot and Scunthorpe, and it was all going to be exported. I have discovered that that was a lie. Last Saturday, in the House of Commons, a Labour MP repeated that point. He misinformed the House of Commons. James Murray, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, earlier this week, likewise, at best misinformed the British people. I have a document from 2020, Martin, which was by an expert, a planning document that was part of the planning representations, that confirms letters of support from both Tata Steel and British Steel that they wanted to use the Cumbrian coal, which has the same sort of sulfur content of about 0.9% as the US coal that British Steel is importing from the US and then blends with lower sulfur coal.
Just to interject, I'm very familiar with this case as well, and the position from Greenpeace, I think from Ed Davey and from the Labour Party until now, the official line, if you like, has been that the Whitehaven coal is too sulphur rich. It's dirty coal. It's not good enough to be burnt in British blast furnaces, and it was only earmarked for exportation, and therefore the mine wasn't viable. That was the official line. You're saying that's wrong.
That official line is a deliberate lie by the eco-zealots. I've got the documentation, and I repeat, the US coal that British Steel Scunthorpe is importing from the US is the same sulfur content, almost very, very similar specification to the Cumbrian coal. We've been gaslit. We've been misled. I'm properly angry about it. Literally 10 days ago, I had senior British Steel executives in Scunthorpe tell me that they could use the Cumbria coal. These lies and misinformation from the zealots and the other MPs has got to stop.
Reform UK leader Richard Tice has launched a scathing attack on the government for refusing to use British coal to power the UK's blast furnaces, despite the nation sitting on vast reserve. We've all been gaslit, we've been misinformed, and we've been lied to, Tice declared, accusing ministers of environmental hypocrisy and betraying British workers. The government's decision means continued reliance on imported coal, often from countries with weaker environmental standards. For Tice, it's a climate con that undermines both British industry and energy independence. We're shutting down our own coal mines only to import coal on diesel ships from halfway around the world. It's economic and environmental madness. The move highlights growing contradictions in Conservative policy, touting net zero goals while pledging support for domestic industry, yet delivering neither. Steelmakers face soaring costs and job losses while miners are left behind. For Reform UK, this is political ammunition. Tice is framing the decision as part of a broader elite betrayal. The people were promised energy security and economic revival, What they got was offshore wind and foreign coal. As election season nears, Tice's message is gaining traction, and the government's silence is only adding fuel to the fire.